Welcome to Groundswell.
This is a space for conversations at the edge of change, where patterns of culture and consciousness shape the world we're actually living in.
I'm Chloe.
And I'm Sam.
You can find us at groundswellcommons.com to learn more about what we're building or join us in conversation on the podcast.
Let's get into the shift.
Hi, Sam.
Hey, Chloe.
This is our first deep dive episode.
Yes, we're doing a little bit of an expansion episode, calling them deep dives.
Yeah, I love that. It's very groundswell.
Yes. So, can I introduce our topic?
Please.
Okay. So today we're very excited to talk in a little bit more detail about Chloe's work and her lens on life and what groundswell is. And so we're talking about the idea that curriculum is not neutral, that schooling is part of the hidden lessons that we inherit.
Well, almost like the Loveless schooling, right?
Yes.
To get right into it.
Do it, yes. Yeah, and like, what does that even mean, right? Like, we've talked a lot about this. We threaded this through a lot of our episodes, but like, the way everything has been structured around us is something imposed. And so when we talk about the things that we've inherited as an imposed system, it all comes back to school. And so I'm really excited to like talk more about this with everyone from your lens.
Well, and the thing too about curriculum, which I think is really interesting, is that like, even though we're all very seriously impacted by it, like we've all been shaped through different types of curriculum in different spaces, it's a study and like a theory, because a lot of curriculum is based on like philosophical perspectives. So it's a philosophy behind what you're doing with something that I think a lot of people don't even know is there. And I think that like there's a few different like factors to that, but curriculum and information about education, or even viewing education as something that's like credible to actually study, right? When Biden was elected, there was like a thing that went out that was like, oh, I'm not going to call the first lady a doctor because she's a doctor of education. And so there's this kind of long-standing belief in America that because education was pushed to women, because education was put in the hands of women, but mind you, who like actually controls curriculum in that, right? But just again, like the theme, we don't listen to women. And then now this really important lens on how we view the world is disenfranchised and made to believe that it's not important when it's like actually so important.
I just think like colliding with your work was some of my greatest awakening. Like when I realized that the systems that we had moved through from school, and then I realized that my parents went through the same school system, and I realized my grandparents went through the same school system. Like when I really like followed that trail is when I realized like, holy shit, all of this is made up, and it was all made up in service of someone politically and not individually, like not just like us as unique people. It was always kind of a game. So, what is this game that school is putting on where they're like, this is where you're learning about life? And it's like, in fact, the prison of life. Well, that might sound a little bit dark because I know you can go on to like.
Schools and prisons are very, very closely linked. I think that I could start a little bit earlier and say that, like, I told you this before, but like, I did not study the history of education in my undergrad. And that is honestly something I always go back to because I'm like, I really didn't learn where history had started until my master's program at a considerably progressive school. So again, I was getting information that was not being taught at the majority of schools, but I was still learning about how oppressive education was from the very beginning. And so we think back to colonization. And I mean, you can see these themes worldwide. So this is not by any means only America. Like America started with the colonies, which like, again, if you think about our system, one of the major printing companies, Pearson, is originally was a British company. So like our education is coming directly from these colonizers, and their purpose of school was to create good citizens, to create God-fearing people, and, people who are going to essentially be good workers for, from a capitalist perspective. So, yeah, school is actually never meant to educate you, but then obviously that's not 100% true. And we've talked about this before too. Like, I think sometimes people do have a really good memory of school, and it can feel hard to hear that school was like actually oppressive for so many people. But I also think that that just means you haven't necessarily reflected on what it was about school that like was good for you, or like why it felt that way. I'm like, the infinite all of everything. There's good experiences there where we had friends, you know what I mean? A lot of school is just like, your connections with other people, which is so important, right? Like we've talked about that too, even in outside of school, or like in classes that you take. Like a lot of times the highlight is the other people that you get to work with. So
totally. Yeah. I mean, that's how you survive school, right? Is the connection. But that part of that greater conversation is like, that's kind of what we're mapping here in this space, is like how you survive life is by being in relationship with it. And so when you realize that school, this institution, was literally like a fractal of this human experience, even though it seems to have governed all of our functions, that's where it's like, it's just like this mind-blowing reality where you're like, oh my God, literally like all the ways in which I was taught to be obedient, to be productive, to sit still, to be quiet, like all of those things weren't for my best interest. How do we recognize those things as being like disenfranchising or oppressive, and kind of like reclaim the pathway? So what we're really noticing is we're living in a moment where people are beginning to question like the systems, the stories, and institutions that have shaped them. Like we're finally kind of like coming online. And because of that, like we're now reflecting on schooling. And it's also probably explains a lot why the schooling paradigm is also shifting. Like we even know people in our life who have taken their children out of institutionalized schooling and are like, we're just going to run the road together. But so many of us are realizing that education did not only teach us content, but it taught us how to relate to authority, intelligence, success, failure, our bodies, our intuition, and each other. So can you speak a little bit more as to what was at stake for colonizing by not acting that way? Like, how did this type of schooling enforce what they were trying to achieve? And so why does it matter now that we reveal it?
I mean, I think there's like 3 contributing factors, and it's Christianity, white supremacy, and also patriarchy. The Holy Trinity. Just kidding. We talked about this before, where what we're witnessing is the transition from a very long cycle of patriarchy. And so it's kind of wild to be alive during the time of such a great shift. But we're seeing it in this way too. Like I've talked to you before about how teaching is in schools now. Like I'm not going to say that everyone's experience is the same, but I can say that the vast majority of people that I know that are teachers are having a very rough time. And it's because they're trying to enforce an old system. And the students know, like they might not have the language. They may not have the language to actually argue with their teacher on why this doesn't matter. You know, they might not be able to actually say it. And so they're continuously enforced back into school. You need to just be doing this, right? Not that they're necessarily listened to either, but yeah, the kids know, like they feel that this is so fucking pointless. And, you know, I hear teachers talk about how horrible student behavior has been. And I'm just like, you know, at the end of the day, like they're the kid.
Yeah.
So I don't condone violence by any means. And I understand like how horrible it could feel as a teacher to be experiencing those things. So there's no like so much compassion for that reality as well. But it's just like, if we're thinking on a larger level, like we need to shift the system. Like they know what they're learning is pointless. We're literally unteaching kids how to read. We're making them so disinterested in learning, unable to critically think, unable to solve problems for themselves. And then we get like, you know, I remember someone asking, like, how did we get to a point where so many people are voting against their own interests? And I'm like, it's because we're teaching them to do that. Like, we're literally not teaching them critical thinking, and this is how this continues on. Also, like, sometimes, too, the thing that I've experienced or talked to people about is that there will be some sort of concept that, like, because you're white, like, you got taught right or something. They're like, oh, yeah, those kids are the ones that didn't get taught, right? Like, Black and brown kids are the kids that like we're missing out on their education. And I'm like, no. It's literally everyone. Like our liberation is linked. It's just as important for like white parents to be aware of curriculum because yeah, we're fucking in this shit together. You know, like every idea of separation is a lie. Like we are actually liberating everyone. It liberates us all, you know? So it's just like, again, like the idea that like your kid's okay because they're white or something, or you know,
truly, or they go to a private school.
Yeah, I went to a public school in a predominantly white neighborhood. This is why I had so much to learn about race when I actually got into a school that was teaching about it. Because I mean, I wasn't even taught about apartheid in school, which now is just like kind of wild in my mind.
What's apartheid?
Oh, God. Yeah. No, this is literally it. We're not being taught like major shit that's happening. Apartheid was happening in South Africa during like the 90s, like not that long ago, like when we were growing up. Honestly, I'm not that well versed either. I just know that I knew it was a South African word because of how it was spelled. And I was in Abu Dhabi teaching. And I went to the teacher across the hall because she was South African. And I was like, oh, I know she knows this word. And she said apartheid. And then I remember learning about apartheid later and being like, how did I not know about this? Like, this was happening while I was like in school. And we weren't talking about like the basically revolution that was happening. Nelson Mandela. We hear quotes from Nelson Mandela. We have no idea what the fuck he did.
Literally.
We're like, what? We're like, oh, he led a revolution?
Yeah. I mean, he was an advocate, right? Like we knew that.
Yeah.
But right, like why didn't we know actually why? Because if we knew why, we would probably realize it actually affected us also. Why do you say school shapes the body or spirit and not just the mind?
Well, I think that a lot of times it kind of comes back to a philosophical belief of like, who are we? Like, what do we believe we are? Because our current school system treats us like we're just these minds that are inhabited in our bodies, right? We're really just focusing on school as education of the mind without even being considering the embodiment of it. And I mean, I do believe that is very intentional, but it's to disembody us, right? Like I've talked to you before about this, but like the ways that schools are structured now, like I literally worked at a school that did near what a prison looks like. Like that's intentional. There was no windows in my classroom. Okay. And it was those old metal desks that have the attached desk in the front. They're very uncomfortable. One of the things that in my class is like, you could literally just stand up if you needed to stand up. I did not get mad at students for like getting out of their chair because I'm like, It's just so it's physically oppressive to actually be asked to sit there and like all day. Like it's crazy.
It's also designed for a specific body type too, right? Like you're assuming one size body can fit in this chair.
Yeah, and be comfortable all day. Yeah, no, it was honestly awful. And then, and I would say maybe a few classrooms in the high school didn't have those, but it was just like the majority of the school was that, which is, yeah, again, it's very rough. And then the fluorescent lighting. I mean, there's a lot of very realistic factors that are involved in this. Fluorescent lighting, there's research that talks about how bad it is for you. So again, why is it in all of our schools? Like, why are we treating it this way? I mean, at my school, they literally had to walk down a certain side of the hallway and then kind of like a traffic lane. Like you couldn't cross directly the hallway. You had to go in this like circle and they would make everyone practice it. And I was like, this is like prison. Like this feels like prison to me. And I just like, that should make me sick. Like I was unwell.
Yeah, go ahead. Are you okay?
No. Yeah.
Okay. No, yeah. And it kind of leads me to the question of, okay, so this is a lens that you have on it, right? That like the majority does not have. Like, and maybe other people have, just like my lens is like, it never fucking crossed my mind, any of these things that were occurring to us. And it really
like, we don't even realize. Yeah.
And it like truly devastates me. And then I think again about the ripple effect of it, which is like, okay, so what does curriculum then have to do with power? So for every line up the hierarchy, you've got students and you've got teachers and you've got teachers who are being like overseen by people who are being overseen by people to have certain outcomes. And like, what are these outcomes and why are, so you mentioned like with early colonialism, what some of those outcomes were, which were like obedience, etc. Are they still the exact same today or have they shape shifted a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's the scariest part about reading about the history of education is seeing how it's still exactly the fucking same. Like, it's weird to look at the trajectory of, say, like technology. Like, think of all these fields that have so significantly shape shift over the years. Jobs look completely different. Teaching, largely the same. A teacher is lecturing at you, you take a test, like, this is what we've been taught school is, which like, yeah, everyone's been through it. It's been normalized.
So then you're kind of like cracked open. You're like, what are the possibilities? Like, what could life be? And like,
yeah,
you know, ever since entering conversations on this topic with you, I've really started to realize how separate school is, or my schooling experience was, from me as an individual. My experience with school was I was there to get in and I was there to get out. Like, I don't know how I managed to function in that way when I was younger, but there was something about it, especially college, where I knew that it was just like the thing I had to do to get into my real world, like the version of the world that I wanted to create. And yet, for about 10 years post-college, I was still functioning in these ways because again, school, it's not just school, right? It translates into corporations, into the way business is acceptable, like what is professionalism, et cetera, et cetera. And so like when you really see its influence, its web of influence, and then you realize it's all political, again, it's like, well, follow the fucking money, who benefits from it. But can we like break some of that down a little bit more?
I would say like billionaires, you know, capitalists. We're in a capitalist system. So yeah, it's beneficial if you're trying to basically deplete people of their resources. It mirrors systems that we've had before because, you know, like there's been revolutions over multiple different time periods in history, right? And it comes from a wealth gap, right? Yeah. And I would also point out that, like, I sometimes think that we were like, oh, who specifically is benefiting from this? So the very few people at charge, not the people, right? And also, so Carter G. Woodson wrote this book called The Miseducation of, and that book really changed my perspective because I really saw the way that, like, he talks about in the book that, like, they teach us to be our own prison guard. They teach us that we, like, don't actually need to have anyone around. They've trained us so hard to think that we're not worthy, to not believe in ourselves, essentially. I mean, and so when you disembody people, you disconnect them from their bodies by making them deal with really uncomfortable situations where they do almost have to leave their body sometimes to, like, function, which is my experience in school a lot, is that I don't feel like I have that many memories because I think I was, like, largely disembodied. Like, I wasn't with myself.
Yes.
So that's happening. And then it's again what in education they call the hidden curriculum. And so it's this is upfront what the curriculum looks like, but all of the things that we don't talk about that you can't necessarily see, it's just like, it's the whole shift right now that we're in from, like, the 3D to the 5D. The 3D was what we could look at, like a correct answer, right? And, like, that's just not what learning is about, truly.
Yeah.
And yeah. And, like, I feel grateful that I was able to learn. And then also, like, I just had a really good experience teaching abroad because I was, like, in this perfect situation where my principal really only cared if my students liked me. And I mean, I have many students that follow me on social media that I still love. So overall, I would say the overarching theme is really that school is dehumanizing. School separates you from yourself. School is disembodying you. So dehumanizing from the lens and the framework of Paulo Freire, which I would say there's some criticisms, but ultimately how he describes the school system is the banking model, where the teacher gets treated as the knower, the one that's always right, which is why we do have these very real conflicts, especially with, like, white teachers and students of color. I mean, there's just so many factors. And so to counteract this, somebody who's on my dissertation committee, Dr. Maria Salazar, and she wrote a humanizing pedagogy. And there are very specific pillars. And so it's these pillars that counteract the dehumanization that's happening in school. So it's like, how do we pull humanization back into the classroom? And so if you are in a space where you have to be in the classroom, it's like, okay, so the power of self. So connecting to what students know, asking students to reflect on themselves, right? Like, it's these small practices, and, like, the teacher's not always right, and you should demonstrate that. So, like, a lot of times I would, like, think through things with my class. Like, I'd be like, okay, this is not working. Like, y'all aren't doing any of this. So what can we do differently together to figure out what we should be doing, right? And it comes back to, too, with Bell Hooks, who made me learn that learning is a spiritual experience. And so when we're disenfranchising and separating spirit and the spiritual experience of learning, like, we're dehumanizing it, you know? Like, we're having a spiritual experience, all of us.
No, literally. And it's, like, so crazy to think that we're so disembodied that, like, we even have to define humanizing. Like, what are the qualities of being human? Well, one of the qualities of being human is, just as you said, it's honoring the fact that we are spiritual. We have spirit, we have soul, and it is that energy that lives us, right? Like, that is our being.
Well, and we have so much personal power when a lot of the hidden curriculum has taken our power from us. It's told us that we need to look outside ourselves for answers, which isn't true, right? And, like, disembodying someone is taking away their intuition.
It It's when we realize how the little thing connects to the big thing and how the big thing connects to the little thing. And like, it has to be part of it. We have to see the whole of it for it to make sense. And I mean, just the idea of like humanizing it, like what is human? What does that mean when we're working in dynamics with others? And what does that mean in terms of like education? Like, how do we fix it? And how do we like navigate it?
I don't necessarily think that like I would say for anything, like I don't believe that there's only one answer. I just think that humanizing is a framework that taught me more about being like more human, or just like understanding like why I sorry. And just like thinking about the fact that I like wasn't like for the first years of teaching, I like wasn't like micromanaged the way that like teachers are in the States. And like I do feel like that's like such a blessing, because there's a lot of like normalized surveillance that's happening in schools to keep you in line with doing a specific thing. And because I taught in a school that trusted me, imagine trusting your teachers, I was able to create like these like really like meaningful projects where like, yeah, students got to like think for themselves and be creative.
Can you name some examples? Like, what are some lived ways that like we can be taught?
Well, I think this isn't like something I came up with, but project-based learning, where it is focusing on like problem solving. Because the reality is that you're going into life and you're going to have to solve a lot of things that you don't know how to do. Mm-hmm. So it's more important that we focus on a process of how to do something versus like an end, like a right answer. So it's like, oh, yeah, duh. So like, nothing makes me more mad than a multiple choice. Like, it's just like, it's not testing your knowledge truly, like ever. We know that. Like, people who study education know all these things. But again, like, because the people in power were buying textbooks from companies and people like in these larger corporations who then pay lobbyists to keep standardized testing in law.
Yeah, it's like literally to just keep a business running. It has nothing to do with like what is proper education. And like the thing that I think we often come back to is, and what you were just leading with, which is problem solving. It's like we have a lot of the answers for how we can change the way life works right now. Like we know that we can make energy with the elements. We can literally make energy with the wind, with water, with earth, with fucking fire. Okay. We know that like organizations and corporations are still like, it's patriarchy and it's money. So like a lot of what we talk about is dismantling patriarchy and transmuting money as energy.
Which is that like the systems that you're talking about are creating fear. Fear and shame. Remember that like that energy controls people, right? It disembodies them. It makes them freeze up. And like again, fear and shame are also used in public schools in a lot of ways. But what counteracts that is love. And that's what I love about love. And my dissertation topic is more about this idea of using love as like a framework for how you act. So love as praxis. So how can I lead with love? And then there's a lot of different aspects to this essentially, right? Like love is such a large term, but it's something that often I feel like in schools is kind of avoided. Like I remember when I taught abroad, it was like not allowed to teach any sort of romantic relationships. And also in public education, like different things are censored, but they're also censored because we're not explicitly taught about love. Since the majority of people are learning about love as being only related to romance.
Mm-hmm.
And love is actually, it's multidimensional because it's about love with yourself. Yes, of course, it's about love with a partner too. But it's also about love for your friends, for your family, for your community, like, and how does it mean that we show up in the world when we love? And again, because of a lot of disenfranchised, like a lot of systemic things that keep people in bad situations, right? But because of that, we end up equating love with like staying by someone's side, right? Like just being loyal to them.
Proximity.
Or like, I mean, abuse, really, like disrespect, abuse, staying with someone through that. And so when we don't explicitly talk about it in schools, which like I think we should, but I also think it's intentional that we don't, we're not having an understanding of what it is, even though for some reason it's like assumed that that'll be like learned at home or something.
No, literally. Like the baseline for everything is loving functions. And this idea that love is only learned at home, that it's separate from school is like, I mean, I feel so much in this conversation and how we were fucking misguided. That's how I feel. Like I feel angry that these systems have been created to literally separate us, to make us hate one another, to make us shame one another. And again, like you said, sometimes this idea of the word love is tossed around a lot, and it's not necessarily embodied either. Like someone loving wouldn't speak to me in ways that I find unacceptable to speak to me. That's not love.
Yeah, because school is like one of the first places that we like have these kind of foundational bonds with people. Like, it's like, why aren't we talking about how we get along with others?
Yeah.
And like that was like something I've told you about, that in Abu Dhabi, I did a lot of group projects, but a lot of group projects really meant me like going and mediating a lot of shit. Like everyone was having a problem all the time, and we just like worked through it, and we'd like I would just like have them talk about it. I would almost just like, yeah, I would just be a mediator for like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what's the solution? And like, because like we took the time to do that. Yeah, not everyone's happy in a group project. That is just like the reality of things. But then to go from that to a school that didn't do any group work, it was hard, It was like, why are we not working together? And again, it comes down to these like, oh, we need to get through something.
The hit that I'm getting is that it also creates so much more work for everyone. Like it doesn't actually achieve more at all.
No, if everyone was like in conversation with other people, and honestly, like sometimes it doesn't have to be about the topic. Like there's a lot of learning that's happening in like social settings, no matter what, right? Like learning happens everywhere. So yeah, if we're able to talk to other people and like given the time to do that. But again, that was consistently my feedback when I taught at a public school, was that I needed to hurry up, that I wasn't going through the content fast enough. And like one of the pillars of white supremacy is the sense of urgency. And I mean, I know this in a lot in myself and people that I know, remembering that I can do things at my own pace. But a lot of us are just so ingrained to rush through things. So I'm like, well, we have to understand this to be able to move forward. How am I supposed to move forward if we don't understand? But then that's how we get to where we are, where a bunch of kids don't know how to read. The literacy rates have gone very down. And again, you're dehumanizing kids. So then they're going to hate whatever you're trying to make them do.
Yeah.
Like anything, they're gonna hate it, And so like reading literally can set you free. Like literacy is so closely tied with like liberation. Once people can read and investigate things for themselves, like that shit sets you free,
Well, I mean, I'm even making the connection just understanding, right? So like I understand my language, but also like Imagine speaking multiple languages. Like, of course, your world totally expands. I mean, there are experiences that don't even translate, right? So then you're having these like embodied experiences in other languages. You said something earlier. That learning is everywhere.
I think again, it's that whole like us not paying attention to or questioning critically our schooling. It's like this kind of concept that learning only happens in this particular place. And that's the hierarchy of it, to think that you must have a degree for people to listen to you. As someone who's getting a PhD, like it's made up. Like this is the system that not everyone's able to get into because of money, right? Like you pay to be a part of the system. And then there's weird hierarchy. I wanted to really quickly go back to, we talked about like changing your perspective, like the language thing. And I almost feel like that reminds me of like the alchemy of learning, because alchemy is being able to transform something. And when we're learning, like learning can transform you because it can literally change your mind. Learning can
and you
quite
can change your
literally
body, right? Again, like coming back to what we started with, which is like that learning is only the mind. It's learning of the body as well and synchronizing them.
Yes. Yeah. And like we've talked about it too. Like the more that I've become aware of my body, I get like signs of like, honestly, like this is right. Or like, yeah, I'll get like
Yes.
activated if I feel good about something. And that's something I've become aware of because I've become embodied. So again, like if we were teaching this earlier on, imagine a whole new generation of students that are embodied. But I think that we're coming to like, this is like the push, like this is what's happening. It's inevitable because of where we're headed with education. Like it's going to crumble, but like a humanizing education system is the way forward. And I know that so many education theorists and people like liberation workers like know this, but I also think that curriculum's for everyone.
Well, and Chiron and Taurus. I mean, it's about being so embodied. So we get a whole
And
7 years to return to our bodies.
also Neptune and Aries,
Neptune and Aries, yeah.
being
Uranus
more
and
embodied with our
Gemini.
spirituality. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, like speaking on it as well, becoming embodied and speaking on it. Like all of these things are happening, right? We just have to remind each other that like we're all moving through the same currents. And by being a mirror and a model for one another, we remind each other that it's safe to be true to yourself, that it's safe to be in your body. I also like, I've begun to really, I talk about the chakras often on our podcast, but like I can feel when my heart feels wide open. It feels warm. I literally feel like there's a cone coming out of my chest. And that's not like some woo woo thing. Like that's like quantum. Like the fact that I can actually feel it is, again, like beyond the concept of 3D. We're beyond 3D now.
Oh, we're so beyond. I love it.
Oh, um, Chloe, do you feel like there's anything else you want to say around learning, education, love, and
Well, maybe I'll
relationship?
just like end on like what the pillars of humanizing pedagogy are, because then I feel like other people could start to like view them in their own lives or shift their thinking more towards that in terms of like learning spaces. And so the pillars are like the power of self. So it's like I power, that you are powerful, that you hold like knowledge and important things. You bring something important to this space. And then it's the power of community. So family and friends and the people that you're with. And then it's critical consciousness. So the ability to think about how things are happening, right? Like the ability to question. And that's like what I would try to bring into my classroom by teaching my students a lot about how education can be dehumanizing. Like I would literally talk to them about it. Like, okay, what's the system that's happening? Okay, normally in a classroom, the teacher has all the power. Like, let's talk about it.
Incredible.
That
An
was
amazing
like
teacher.
right before. And the last one is social justice. So tying learning into current events and teaching about social justice. I mean, there's so many examples of it around us, right? Like it's not hard to be tying learning to like current things that are happening in the world.
I love that. And then I'll also just add to like, again, by taking notice of how these things are occurring in the world, remembering that the world stage is a mirror of you and your heart. And so if you're feeling activated by something, like follow that thread and explore that further. Like, just what does that mean for you? So as all of these things start to continue to illuminate, we're all in this like firefly field of like, oh, now you're seeing it this way. Now you're seeing it this way. Now you're seeing it this way. And I'm just so grateful for your lens on learning because it has changed my understanding of everything. I love you.
I love you too. And yeah, I think that like loving yourself through all of this is like an important lesson as well.
If this resonated, we'd love for you to like, subscribe, comment, or share it with someone in your world.
You can find everything we're building at groundswellcommons.com, including ways to engage and connect with us.
You can also work with me, Chloe, at chloehodson.org.
And me, Sam, at futureancestorsproject.org.
Thanks for being part of the shift.